And another player to where, like, and let me be clear, I love this player. I think I would have loved to see the Grizzlies get him.
That always means you don't really love the player. No, I'm just joking.
I love him, but I don't. But a player that I really think can have a great career, Ron Holland, and he came from the G League Ignite. And I actually followed the Ignite pretty closely last season. I interviewed a couple other players, Tyler Smith and London Johnson. So I like their program, what they did there. But for Ron Holland, a guy that we're shooting is his biggest detriment right now, going to Detroit, and yes, they did pick up some shooting in free agency, but that team is still in flux, and they just came off one of the worst seasons in franchise history. A guy like Ron Holland that's kind of hilter, skilter, and all over the place, going to a franchise that's going through a rough patch right now, I kind of worry a little bit for him that he might get kind of lost in the weeds there.
He's just in the G League Ignite again.
Yeah, exactly. They were 2-32, man, and now he's going to a franchise where it's going to be a lot more losing, unfortunately. So I worry for him, but I hope he can overcome it because I love his athletic tools at number 5, and his upside I think is really clear there. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, he's shown some fun stuff in summer league, driving to the basket
for sure.
And things of that nature. I mean, they got Tobias in there. Maybe he could help out in the locker room. And Tobias is known as like a professional's professional.
Yep.
So maybe he could help Ron out there. Also, when you look at guys that at some point were looked at the number 1 pick in the draft, you never give up on those guys, right? Like, there's something there. There was a reason why they were talked about in that regard.
For sure.
So he was looked at as the number 1 guy at one point.
He was,
yeah,
I remember.
And I think that, with Detroit, they might have something there. We got to see. Cade is an interesting mix. They got Durant. So, I mean, Tobias is going to want his minutes. So we'll see. But they're going to have to play this guy, right, in the position they're in. I mean, it's not win-now mode. So
exactly. Right now, it's just evaluation mode. They're just trying to see what they have. But it's just tough because
they extended Cade, which is good. I love Cade. I love Cade's game.
Max rookie extension for Cade, over $200 million.
What do you think about the argument that, like, how good is he if he's on a team that loses that many games in a row? Because that was people's argument to me when I'm like, no, Cade is great. Like, I lost no faith in Cade.
Yeah. I think that their situation of their team could really cloud his impact. Because when you look at his stat lines, he had a lot of great stat lines last year and a lot of great moments where he really popped for them. But then you would look in the box score, and I would joke around with my friend all the time because he has Cade on his dynasty basketball team. We're in the same league.
Okay.
And he got killed so many games last season because he had a lot of turnovers.
Right.
In our league, you lose 2 points for every turnover. So if he has 5 turnovers, you're losing 10 points right off the bat before anything else.
I mean, and who's Cade playing with? So that makes it tough, too.
That's the problem. You're playing with Azar and guys that can't space the floor, Isaiah Stewart, and guys like that. It's just really tough for him to get any kind of space.
Yeah.
And he's not one of those guys that's going to be a consistent guy that's going to put pressure on the rim. He's not the most shifty or the most fluid with the ball. He relies more on just creating a little bit of separation with his size.
Right.
So it was really a tough situation for him to be in. But I don't blame Detroit for giving him that extension because the outline of a great player is there. He just needs to be in a better situation where they're not losing 80-85% of their games.
Yeah. I love his feel for basketball. Like, just watching Cade play is like often poetry in motion.
Sure.
I just love the way he plays. He has great feel. He's not the craziest athlete in the world, but
he brings other things to the table.
Yeah,
other great attributes.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's definitely a tough situation for them. But I think there's going to be players that we think go to a bad situation that are going to pop. And then vice versa, there's going to be players that we think are in a perfect team that they're going to struggle. It really comes down to how the team utilizes them and then how much they show a desire to learn and grow through summer league and then other opportunities that they may have kind of sprinkled throughout the calendar. Not sure how much you've gotten to watch Matas Buzelis, Tyler Smith played yesterday
here. To be honest, I wanted Matas to go number 1.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that. I saw him in some mock drafts pretty high. But I think the Bulls got a great deal getting him where they did. I want to say number 11, Chicago. He's pretty fluid at his size, 6'9". He looks pretty light on his feet. Watched him yesterday play against his old teammate Tyler Smith. That's with the Bucks.
Yeah, okay.
So they went toe-to-toe.
That was cool.
And, Tyler had a corner three-pointer right in his eye, heavily contested. And they were talking back and forth. So that was a fun little contest to watch.
Yeah.
But for Matas, I think he's going to need to bulk up a little bit, obviously. And his shooting consistency is going to need to improve. Yesterday, a lot of his attempts were just kind of all over the place. But you can see the form. You can see his ability to get separation off the dribble.
Yeah.
And you can see his ability to just be a a pretty fluid guy on the defensive end as well.
Yeah.
He could be a underrated shot blocker, too.
Yeah, I think you nailed it because I think he has feel on both sides of the floor. He changes shots on the defensive end, and then he's a great mover. He's a great ball mover on the offensive end. I think that's an underrated skill set and you could see what he could do off the dribble. And you mentioned the shooting has to get better, but he has everything else, and that's kind of why I liked him at number 1. Because there was like 15 guys that could have won number 1, but I liked
him. It was
but I liked him because he had the size, the feel, the athleticism, and the two-way impact, and I feel like he can become better as a shooter.
Big time. And if we're talking about shooting, that's something that Tyler Smith already has in his bag. He's a lefty. He's a 6'10 lefty. He kind of reminds me of Chris Bosh a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
To where he just he has such a fluid motion. It's easy for him.
Yeah.
And he hit a couple threes yesterday, back to back actually. I think it was the end of the first half. Watching that game, he looks so comfortable out there in that position. Now he's going to need to work on getting to the rim, and I talked with him about that and how coaches were urging him to get a little bit more physical. But as far as his ability to be a stretch 4, I think he's going to slot in nicely, and it's another great developmental piece for the Milwaukee Bucks, who they're getting a little bit older, so they're going to need to start prioritizing guys coming through the pipeline a little bit more. But I like what I've seen from him so far.
Yeah, and I mean, stretch 4s stretch bigs in general work well with Giannis, and Giannis is going to be there for a while, so maybe he could even give him a few minutes this year. Who knows? I mean, they have injury history is crazy with the Bucks, so maybe he'll get to play a little bit this year. I think he's a perfect fit for them, and you always need a good stretch 4,
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.